couple of countries, have a couple of beers, and discuss a stadium somewhere in the world and their experiences there. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
We're excited to be here with you tonight. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the Stadium Journey YouTube channel, like the video, and feel free to leave a comment or two. And to check out all of our fantastic content, visit the mothership, the website, stadiumjourney.com. So let's get rolling. Dave, what are you drinking today?
So on my way to my cottage in Wasaga Beach, there is a highway 89. It's an east-west, and we call it Burger Highway because it has 3 really kind of unique burger places on this highway fairly close together. So one of those is in a tiny little town called Primrose, Ontario, and that is pretty much our go-to stop. If we're eating on the way, then we want to stop here. Of course, it's a lot easier in the winter than it is in the summer because it's way busier in the summer than it is in the winter. So that spot is called Champ Burger. Now, Champ Burger is licensed. They sell beer. And not only do they sell beer, they sell their own beer. They sell Champ Burger Lager.
Nice.
Now, it's not really their beer. I mean, they're doing like what every sports team is doing now. They've partnered with Red Line Brewhouse in Barrie, Ontario, which is, if you keep going east on 89, you're going to get almost to Barrie. Go a little north after that. But yeah, it's a pretty basic kind of Molson Canadian like lager, but it does the trick, hits the spot, and it's from my favorite spot to stop on the way to the cottage. So can't go wrong. Nice. What do you got?
I don't know if you have shamed me into this or it's just that you were wrong about my taste in beers, because tonight I'm actually drinking an Irish red ale. So
probably the former.
Probably, yeah, because that's kind of me. I'm a little reactive sometimes. But anyway, on one of my road trips up to the great city of Manchester, New Hampshire, I don't know if a lot of our listeners know this, but that is the hometown of one Adam Sandler. So before he went and tried to make it big in New York and Hollywood, he was from Manchester. And one of the breweries we went to, Backyard Brewery in Manchester, pays homage to Adam Sandler with this beer. Geez, there it is. O'Doyle Rules. So anybody who's seen the movie Billy Madison knows what I'm talking about. So that's what I've got this evening. If we were visiting today's destination, we might be drinking a Rhinestone Cowboy Lockered Ale from Big Rock Brewery in Toronto, because today we're talking about BMO Field, home of Toronto FC. Holy initials, Batman. Before we dive in, let's take a look at the Stadium Vitals. All right, so we're going to talk about BMO Field, the Toronto FC of the Major League Soccer. And so, admittedly, anyone who's listened to us for a long time knows soccer's not really my thing. Before visiting Toronto, I've been to 2 MLS venues, maybe one of the best and definitely one of the worst. So I had been to Allianz Field in St. Paul, home of Minnesota FC.
Minnesota United.
Minnesota United. Yeah, I can't keep track of all these. They don't have catchy nicknames to remember. No. But anyway, and the other one is Gillette Stadium, home of New England Revolution. So I've been to either end. So I walked into to BMO Field on the third leg of a long day, on a triple header we did on Canada Day. So between the way, Dave, you had really built up BMO Field through your repeated visits there for Toronto FC and for the Argos, I was expecting Allianz Field. And I got in there and I texted you pretty early on in the match and I says, Dave, I think I'd rather be at a game at Gillette. Why am I wrong?
Well, I a couple things. So first of all, we're going to fix this now. So it's not BMO, it's BMO.
Is that just the way the locals say it, or is that the way it's supposed to be said?
No, that's well, I think it's a little of both, but
Okay.
BMO stands for the Bank of Montreal.
Okay, so yeah, so
BMO
BMO. Yep.
is how it's pronounced. And we're talking about Toronto, not the newly minted BMO Stadium in Los Angeles, because apparently BMO bought out the Bank of California. So where LAFC plays is now BMO Stadium. Ugh. But
I've actually seen BMO Stadium.
okay,
That's the one right next to the Coliseum, correct?
that is correct.
I've seen it.
I can understand your perspective
Shall
on
I explain first before you rebut?
Gillette. Well, you can. I can understand what you're saying though.
Yeah. I think it just fell a little short of what I was expecting. Maybe my expectations were not realistic. Now, when I say that, I was kind of being facetious because I wanted to get a rise out of you. And your buttons are not as easy to push as one of our podcast cohorts, Dan. His buttons are very easy to push. Yours are not so easy, but I figured that would get you. But you were in Cincinnati having a great time, so you were very chill, and it
That's true.
did not get a rise out of you. So let me separate this. As a facility, seeing a game at BMO Field, far superior than watching it in a 60,000 seat football stadium. Where it might fall short of a place like Gillette would be in the comfort and the concession type experience. So if you were to grade them, Toronto's better here, New England's better here. But it's a fine facility. Go ahead.
I totally understand what you're saying, and think about this, right? Like when you go and watch a game at Gillette, you're watching in seats that you would never, ever sit in to watch the Patriots because they cost 2 mortgage payments and a cow, right?
True.
You are sitting in like the golds in the platinums, right? Because
Yes.
you can only buy the lower level.
Lower bowl, correct.
So you're absolutely right. The seats themselves at BMO are not the greatest. The first time I went, I was like, yeah, this place kind of sucks.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the seats that they have there, at least I was in the 200 level, so I don't know if the 100 has better seats. 200 level has these little plastic, they're just kind of shaped like this. they're bucket seats without armrests or anything and spread out. I've been in one other ballpark that has seats like that. Billy Bullens Field in Westfield, Massachusetts. So that shows you these aren't the kind of seats you're going to get otherwise.
No, they're definitely on the cheaper side. I would imagine that was part of it. I will say this about the seats is you're not jammed in there. Like I've never felt squished.
Not all, because they give you some good room in between.
You got some good space, but yeah, they're absolutely like it's just this plastic molded seat. There's nothing to fold, nothing like you're just sitting, or you could sit right down on the thing with the kind of full recliner,
yeah,
super dude seats or whatever. So that part I get, but BMO was built as the National Soccer Stadium. It was it opened in 2007, which was the first year of Toronto FC. Major League Soccer looked totally different then.
Mm-hmm.
They were just on the cusp of opening soccer-specific stadiums.
Right. I was going to say that was one of the first soccer-specific stadiums in the league. Like Columbus, I think, and them were like really on the
Columbus
forefront.
was the first, and that's now historic Columbus Crew Stadium, which is not even in use anymore. It's already been replaced. The only other ones that are older are the LA Galaxy in Carson and Dallas, where FC Dallas plays. Now, that's out of soccer-specific stadiums. So, of course, BC Place is older. I think Lumen Field is older, where Seattle plays.
Seattle,
but they're football stadiums, right?
Yep.
So it was also built with a capacity of 21,000. The capacity now is 30,000.
Really?
So
I will say it was banged out too.
One of those upper decks did not exist. Actually, the very first time I went to BMO, and I'll make sure I put this picture in. It was for a Major League Lacrosse game. The Toronto Nationals played there. And I was sitting in the lower deck, and you could see the CN Tower across the stadium because the upper deck wasn't there at all.
Okay, cool.
So it's been expanded a few times.
So that was the side I was on. So I was on the newer side.
Yeah. It did not have the overhangs. Like that was a new development. So when it was built so that you could expand on it. The new stadiums, Allianz, FC Cincinnati, the new Crew, that's it. You're not expanding on that. Okay. And maybe, well, look at the World Cup. Look at the stadiums that have been selected for the World Cup. They're all football stadiums, with the exception of BMO Field, because they're going to expand it again to make it about 41,000, which is really on the.
Where are they going to add seats?
They're going to add temporary,
both ends,
temporary bleachers on the ends. Yeah.
Okay.
And they've done that before. They've done that for the Grey Cup when the Grey Cup was there. Not to the extent that they're going to do it for the World Cup. Sure. But yeah, you got MetLife, you've got Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz, SoFi, like Houston, all of these big, massive football stadiums are the World Cup venues.
Yep.
Even the other one in Canada is BC Place in Vancouver. It's a 50,000 seat stadium. So
it's got some charms. There's a reason why I was selected.
I totally get how you look at it and you go, oh, wow, this is.
All right. Well, let me give you a little.
The physical piece is not, it's not there. And they've even gone a step beyond, right? So I would say that the first kind of a soccer stadium like Minnesota was Red Bull Arena, fully enclosed, totally different vibe, totally different experience. So that was a number of years after kind of this group. Montreal was built right about just a little bit later. Colorado was built. Real Salt Lake was built. All of those were kind of built before this big kind of soccer arena style, which is, I get it. That is, in a perfect world, that is desirable. That's absolutely a great experience. The acoustics are amazing. If you could fill that place, the atmosphere is beyond. And BMO does okay, but the people made it. Right.
Yeah, so you could kind of say BMO Field is like akin to maybe like an Angel Stadium of the MLS, because it was there first. It did a lot of things that moved on to newer places.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe one of the let me talk about some of the things you had built up to me and say why this was my opinion. And in hindsight, it's softened as I got there. I had a really good time at the game. We'll get into that in a little bit. So you talked about, BMO Field is part of a larger complex of facilities. There's Coca-Cola Coliseum where the Toronto Marlies play.
Yep.
There's also exhibition grounds, and there's some other things there. So there's a lot of things. There's a concert site there as well, I believe.
Yep. Across the road, there's an outdoor concert.
So a lot of things in the area. So we had a real mess to get from the Blue Jays game over to the Toronto FC game. So we kind of made a last-second decision to drive there instead of taking the train. And, everything's online. So I got the Green Pea app or whatever it was called and got a parking spot, went in the parking lot. And it's being Canada Day, we didn't exactly get super close to the stadium. So it wasn't bad. It was still very convenient for what we paid. I think we paid $30 Canadian, so not bad to park right next to it. And you had told me about how the old bases from Exhibition Stadium were there in the parking lots. Didn't have time to look for that. We didn't have really time to go around and look at the outside of the stadium. And there are sides of it that are maybe more attractive than the way we came in. So we came in on I don't even know if it was the south side, north side, whatever. And when we came in, there's nowhere to come in and walk around. You come in and then you go up the stairs.
Right.
So, all right, so that was weird. I was expecting to come in and have this nice wraparound concourse or something, which it doesn't have. So you go up the stairs and there's basically a concourse. I think the 100 level, maybe you can go all the way around. I'm not sure, or like a
Yeah, you
horseshoe
can.
stage.
Once you get kind of the upper end of the 100s, you can go all the way around.
Yeah, you have to. I think you have to traverse some stairs and stuff. So we had to go up another level to get up to the 200s. And after walking, I think we had walked a grand total of 5 or 6 miles that day. So that 2 sets of stairs killed me. And we got there and we got up to our seats right as the anthem was playing. So then we had to stop. And
Right.
for some reason, at the end of the anthem, everybody went down the stairs. They weren't going up to their seats. Everybody was leaving their seats. Maybe they were in the wrong section or something. I don't know. But we got up to our seats, started watching the game, and the atmosphere just wasn't. Maybe because I was on the opposite side than the fan sections. So when we were in Minnesota, for example, we had the privilege of being right next to the supporter groups. So it was loud and it was fun. And the supporter groups were over there doing their thing, but being on the other end of the stadium, they didn't carry as much noise as maybe I'd hoped. And you had said to me that they're not as rowdy as maybe they were in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto is historically a very trendy kind of city. You know, they're all on board, and then once they reach the apex, that's like, okay, I've been there, done that. Now I'm going to go back to the Leafs.
It's not cool anymore. So yeah,
or whoever, right?
Well,
So
Toronto FC is also struggling mightily this year,
oh,
so
they
that might
are
have something to do with it.
terrible. They are so bad. But you know, the history of the team is really kind of funny. They went from being, they had a number of years that were just terrible, and then somehow they lured Tim Lewicki, who was the big LA guy, to be the president of MLSE. He brought in people. He was really big into Major League Soccer. They brought in Michael Bradley. They brought in Josie Altidore. They brought in Sebastian Jovinko. Some of the talent that they had built was really starting to be fruitful, and they made the MLS Cup, and then they lost to Seattle, and then the next year they won the MLS Cup, beating Seattle. So they had built and built and built, and the attendance was always strong when they were terrible. I mean, Toronto is an extremely multicultural, extremely diverse city. So, you know, you could go into BMO and not hear any English except for the dude on the PA system. It's that kind of place. But with the 2019 MLS Cup and they've kind of fallen off. The supporter sections are still there, but they're definitely not as rowdy. And now you're at the point where one of the great things about the supporter section is every game in the 24th minute, they sing the Danny Dichio song. And the Danny Dichio song is because Danny Dichio scored the very first goal for Toronto FC on May 12th, 2007 in the 24th minute. And now you really have to, like, before you're like, who's Danny Dichio and why are they singing about him? Now you have to, like, oh, it's almost the 24th minute. We gotta listen.
I had forgotten about it until they started singing. It's like, oh yeah, I know what that is.
I feel that actually Toronto FC really embraced their supporters a lot earlier than some of the other MLS teams did. It feels like that the supporters really kind of pushed the team forward, pushed them to where they needed a bigger stadium. They needed all those kinds of things. There were some issues. There was a supporter group that was decommissioned. They were basically stripped of all their rights and abilities because they got into some trouble in Ottawa, and I don't know, something about fireworks and a mess. And the supporter group was called Inebriati, which,
well, that tells you a little something right there.
Yeah. But very strong supporter group still. But you're right. It is part of Exhibition Place, which is where Exhibition Stadium used to be, where the Jays used to play. You can see the bases out there in the parking lot if you look for them. uh, you're right. It's not the physically greatest venue going, and sometimes we have to do that. We have to look back to the significance of this venue and look past maybe what we see with our, with our eyes, and how does this apply? What would a foreigner think of Fenway Park, right? Like, would they walk
Right.
into Fenway Park and go, wow, or would they go, what a dump?
Yeah. Or, or if the Red Sox are doing well, it's one way. The atmosphere is really electric. And if the team is struggling, it's another one. And that's the case when I visited, even though I visited on Canada Day, which is it was a sold out crowd, no seats to be found, except luckily one on the side of Pam and myself. So we got to spread out even a little more, which I'm sure everybody appreciated. Yeah, what we did actually too, to experience more of the field, more of the stadium. With about 20 minutes left, we got up out of our seats. We started walking around. We ended up right behind the supporter section for the last 15 minutes of the match. And you said Toronto has shown their fans excruciating loss after excruciating loss this season. Well, we witnessed as close as you can get to a walk-off soccer game as you can, because they were playing Real Salt Lake. Real came down in injury time and had 4 amazing kicks, shots on goal. I don't know how they didn't put it in, but the 4th one they put in. So it was a walk-off 1-0 loss for the home team. But that way we got to see a little bit more of what the concessions were like, and got to buy a couple of souvenirs, and we didn't get to see a lot of the features. Like there's a wall of honorees, or I don't know if they're retired numbers or.
Yeah, and that's on the outside actually.
Yeah, so we didn't get to see any of that stuff. So, that dampens a little bit of your spirit. We got in and out of the place really easily, so that's a major plus.
Nice. And you were heading east.
We went back
Where
through the city to Oshawa. We stayed in Oshawa that night.
most people are, well, my experience is most people are heading west, and it's a little bit more challenging to head that way than to get to the 401 east. Toronto, of course, there's a million and 6 things to do in the city. Exhibition Place
city.
is a little bit off the beaten path.
It is.
Like it's not right downtown. It's not terribly far.
It's in the middle of it's right next to a park, isn't it? Like a lakefront park.
Yeah, so across the road is Ontario Place, which used to be kind of an entertainment district, and then it's fallen into disrepair, and it's been a bit of a debate as to what to do with it. And now they're going to basically make it Ontario Place again, make it another sort of amusement park kind of thing. The CNE is there, so like the equivalent of the state fair. So it's there in August, on the grounds there. You were lucky. I was there kind of the week after you were there, and they were getting ready for the race. So the big Indy race, which runs right through the exhibition grounds, which if you like racing, it's great. If you just want to see soccer, it's terrible because they take up like 3/4 of the parking lot.
Right.
And suddenly it becomes very congested down there. But I would say if you're on the north side, okay, so the south side is where the lake is, north side is where the highway is. If you go north under the tracks, you're going to get to a little area of Toronto called Liberty Village, and there's a couple little brew pubs and a couple little spots there that are pretty decent to head to. Before a game, after a game, but that would be the place where you would probably want to go if you're looking for like the neighborhood kind of thing. But other than that, you hop on the GO train, which is right there. 5 minutes you're at Union Station. When you're at Union Station, then wow, the world's your oyster. You can theater, Hockey Hall of Fame, Jays, Leafs, Raptors, whatever. Like it's all right there.
All right. So I think my initial impression of BMO Field was partially because of my crazy schedule, and partially because of a lackluster team. I'm sure, like any stadium in any city, that if you go there and Toronto FC is competitive and pushing for a playoffs or a title, it's going to be rocking. And I'm not going to lie, the more soccer places I go to, the more I enjoy the experience. And this was not a disappointing experience in that regard. So let me officially take back my text, which was meant to push our buttons and say BMO Field is a solid place to go catch game and worthy of your stadium journey. So that's our look at BMO Field, guys. Hope you enjoyed our talk, and we hope to see you on the road again real soon. Cheers.
Cheers.